Welcome everyone to LuchaWorld Podcast episode number 68. Fredo Esparza here. This week we will be previewing DTU's upcoming iPPV scheduled for this Thursday, along with some thoughts on the recent news around the world of Lucha Libre, including Kamaitachi joining Los Ingobernables de Japon, Ultimo Guerrero feuding with Valiente and Carístico, some thoughts on Lucha Underground, and just a couple of updates on some of the latest news that's happened in the past few days. However, we probably should begin with some sad news. Sorry to report the passing of retired Monterrey luchador Jesus Villalobos, better known by his ring name Chucho Villa. He passed away Sunday morning. This story is very interesting because Chucho Villa's Jesus Villalobos, I'll refer to him as Chucho Villa since most of you who are listening probably know him more as under his wrestling name. His wife Leonor Torres had passed away on Saturday from a heart attack, and what's even crazier was that her birthday had happened on Friday. So her family, I guess friends and family had celebrated her birthday on Friday, and on Saturday she suffered a heart attack and died in the arms of Chucho Villa. While they were having a wake for her late Saturday, Villa also suffered a heart attack and was pronounced dead by I guess early hours of Sunday morning. While I was looking for some information on Chucho Villa and what had happened, the person that actually provided a lot of the news was Garza Jr., Triple A's Garza Jr., and he had talked about how Chucho Villa and his wife, Doña Leonor, as she was called, they had been together for well over 50 years, and they were practically inseparable. Garza Jr. was talking about how they not only were they together, when they were at the house, but she would travel with him from the time he started wrestling, or when they met. He was already wrestling, so she would travel with him on tours throughout Mexico. There's stories of her taking their son, who wrestled after as Tigre Universitario. I think he still wrestles right now. So, but it's this interesting relationship, just showing you how much love they had, and they were very well liked among a lot of the luchadors. A lot of them were on their Facebook pages were just in shock that they would both pass away. I mean, over the weekend, within hours of Chucho Villa's wife passing away, he passed away. So a lot of them were talking about how they had just sent their condolences to Chucho Villa, to Tigre Universitario, and to the rest of the Villalobos family. And they were absolutely in shock that he would die afterwards. As far as Villa's career, I mean, he was basically primarily, for most of us, he was primarily just remembered from his time in Monterrey. But he actually has a career that goes back to 1960, where he first started in his own home region or hometown of Matamoros. And he spent about 4 to 6 years as an independent at that time, where he traveled from Matamoros to Ciudad Juarez, Torreon. He then made it all the way to Guadalajara. He used a variety of gimmicks at that time before he was given the name Chucho Villa. And actually, the person that gave him the name was Salvador Luteroth. The story that was told by Chucho Villa was that Salvador Luteroth came up with the name Chucho Villa when he invited him to be part of the main roster in Arena Mexico back in 1966. For the most part, I think most people just thought of him as a good undercard wrestler. He teamed up very early in his career with El Bello Greco, when Bello Greco was only known as El Greco. Basically, Bello Greco, this was before Bello Greco became an Exotico, so he was just known as El Greco. And Chucho Villa had mentioned that there's a story of them having won they refer to it as the national tag team titles, but a lot of people refer to them as the Arena Coliseo tag team titles. So there's a little bit of there's a little bit of a lineage issue, or like people don't really know what the story is behind that. But for the most part, most people recognize that as being the from where the Arena Coliseo tag team titles that they had held, that version. And he was talking about how they actually beat El Solitario and another luchador called El Misterio Negro back in 1968. There was a really interesting story that he was talking about, that he when they won the belts, when they beat Solitario and Magia Misterio Negro. I keep thinking of Magia Negro for some reason. Misterio Negro. They were basically, from that point, prior to that match, they were basically in probably the opening, second match, third match type of luchadors, kind of like what you see now, like with Raciel and Canserbero, or the guys who even hold the Arena Coliseo tag team titles, where they're basically the third or fourth match. That's kind of what they were at that point before they won the belts. After they won the belts, they went from being the second, third match to being semi-main event to main event wrestlers for EMLL. So at one point, since they would travel to Arena Coliseo de Monterrey for the promoter at that time, Nicolas Veloz, the promoter didn't know who Chucho Villa was. Actually, it wasn't Greco. He actually brought in Chucho Villa because Chucho Villa was living in Monterrey by that point. So he brought in Chucho Villa to wrestle, and he brought him in and had him wrestle in opening and second matches. And Chucho Villa was fine with it. He had no problem. And the promoter, he didn't really know who Chucho Villa was at that time, so he had no problem with it either. So when word got to Salvador Lucharoth that Chucho Villa, who was one half of the tag team champions from national tag team champions and for EMLL, when word got that to Lucharoth that Villa was working opening matches in Monterrey, Lucharoth complained and told and was very upset with the Monterrey promoter, and he asked why were you booking him so low in the card, and the promoter basically said, well, the guy never first of all, I didn't know who he was, and second, I mean, Villa never complained, so he didn't mind. He figured he didn't have a problem with it. So Lucharoth basically from that point forward made him understand that he could not work opening matches. And from that point forward, he was basically working higher on the cards on Monterrey. And throughout his career, he spent 15 years in EMLL. In 1976, he, along with his wife and son, Tigre Universitario, I don't remember how old he was at that time, they were traveling on a bus, and they were in an accident. And his wife and Tigre Universitario, his son, were fine. I think his son only suffered like a cut in his ear or something, but Chucho Villa actually suffered what many at that time thought were career-ending injuries. He basically suffered a leg injury that required them putting pins into his leg. It wasn't very specific what the injury was, but they basically told him his career was over. And I think he was living at that time in Monterrey, so the promoter from Monterrey, who had actually previously, had used him as an undercard guy and was scolded by Lucharoth, went over and showed up at the hospital to see him, and he basically told him while Villa was rehabbing, because everybody was telling Villa his career was over. He spent 2 years rehabbing from this injury, and basically the promoter basically told him it would be a shock to him that if he would ever come back, and basically told him, if you came back, it would be like a resurrection, basically. And so from that point forward, Villa was very motivated to prove everybody wrong. And when he came back, he decided that he would wrestle under a mask and become wrestle as El Resucitado, which is translated to the resurrected. And he actually he continued to wrestle. I mean, I think he came back in 1978. He wrestled he returned to EMLL, but basically by that point, he basically was more of a Monterrey luchador. So but he was still splitting his time going back to EMLL, where he got to team up with El Nazi. He actually got to see he got to feud with some of the the early high flyers of that era, like Kato Kung Lee, Kung Fu, and in Arena Revolucion in Mexico City, he got to feud with Satoru Sayama, Tiger Mask, and from that point forward, he basically had reestablished himself as again, as a pretty reliable hand. So when he was back in Monterrey, he started they talked about him feuding with guys like Rosado Reis, Averno's father. He lost his mask to Centurion Negro in 1983. The funny thing is, they don't really know the exact date. If you ask Chucho Villa, he just knows it happened in Torreon, Coahuila, but he did not know the exact date. I don't even think he knew the year. Someone else found out that it was in 1983. It might have been Centurion Negro, because that guy would probably remember that. So Chucho Villa continued to wrestle after that for actually after he dropped the name El Resucitado, he went back to wrestling as Chucho Villa and continued to wrestle into I think 2004, 2005. He suffered an injury somewhere around 2003, 2002, 2003 that kept him out of the ring for a bit. But he continued to wrestle. He's only appeared on and off on some of those special shows, like legend shows that happen in every city where there's lucha libre, where they bring in some of the old timers to like team up with some of the young guys, or just to have some of that nostalgia from years past. For many of you who may not be familiar with Chucho Villa, you might have heard his name mentioned if you watch CML Informa. Hechicero actually credits him for being one of the main luchadors who trained him while he was in Monterrey. So yeah, it's a pretty sad story. Hopefully, I mean, like, if there is an afterlife, hopefully he and his wife are together. And I mean, I think if you're with your wife for like 50 plus years, I mean, I think I could understand why he had that sudden, a heart attack too. I mean, it's a shock to the system. Totally understand. Condolences to his family. Tigre Universitario, who, I mean, I think the shock of losing your mother one day and then your father the next day, I mean, it's difficult. I think the only thing he could probably take solace in is that they're both together in heaven, if he believes in an afterlife, like I said. Yeah, so that was the big news from early Sunday. I'm actually recording this in front of my computer. I have a tablet in front of me. I have my desktop on because I'm busy looking over different things. And wouldn't you know it, we actually have some Alberto El Patron news. Alberto Del Rio, as you know him. This news just came up a couple of minutes ago. Alberto El Patron attended the IWRG show in Arena Naucalpan this Sunday. And they actually, you could find a lot of photos of them at the show. There's one photo that this fan took of him with Alberto. Alberto looked like he did not want to be there. I think he was just there. He took Paige with him, so they were there to support Alberto's brother, Hijo de Dos Caras, who was wrestling in the 30-man Royal Rumble, I think. So apparently he got into a fight at Arena Naucalpan. The story, there's still more to the story, but what we know right now is that he went backstage. He took Paige backstage, and apparently one of the local luchadors, Rafy of the Ninja Turtles, who also wrestled previously as Alan Extreme, he was nearby, and I guess something must have happened where Alberto got into a jealous rage or something, because other wrestlers backstage, one of the other guys who was there backstage was Oficial AK-47, and he basically said he doesn't know other than he must have had a jealous rage. But next thing he knew, Alberto was was beating the shit out of Alan, because I guess he thought that he had touched Paige or was looking at her the wrong way, and they just started fighting. They brawled in the hallway. Some of the fans actually saw the fight. They broke it up. Alan's face was apparently messed up. Oficial AK-47 said that it was bad enough where he thought Alberto was going to kill Rafy of the Ninja Turtles, Alan Extreme. They don't know what happened to Alberto. But several fans and several of the wrestlers are just very upset about it, just talking about it. There's a few of them just joking about it because if you're not involved in it, you're just gonna make light of the situation. But Oficial AK-47, basically said that it was bad enough where he thought thought Alberto was gonna kill Rafy, and thinks they're gonna press charges on Alberto for what happened. This is an ongoing situation with Alberto. There's still more. I just checked on the Facebook page and there's a little bit more on here. Everybody's asking if there's video and stuff like that. Because there are actually people who were there that were actually that take pictures and whatnot. But all you see is pictures of Alberto taking pictures with fans and him sitting in the crowd earlier in the show. But yeah, this is something that just happened. Really, one of those stories you kind of expect with Alberto. He did that TMZ interview where it looked like they were him and Paige looked like they were wasted. The previous story of him being in a fight and nobody really knowing what went on, because Alberto told one story and then he told Court Bauer a different story, and then Dave Meltzer heard a different story, and the people in Mexico were reporting a completely different story. It was just ridiculous. Oh, I'm just noticing they released the Torneo Phil teams. One of the matches for the Lucha Meme show on December 25th is Torneo Phil, which is a torneo cibernetico between two different schools, captained by a maestro. Black Terry captains the IWRG team, and captaining the Lucha Memes team is Jack Evans. And I'm curious to see, I don't see anybody who's actually much of a breakdancer listed on there. But Black Terry's team consists of Demonio Infernal, Black Dragon, Cannon, Dragonfly, Hijo de Alebrije, Araña de Plata Jr., Diablo Jr., Skanda, all IWRG regulars, younger wrestlers in that promotion. And for Lucha Memes, it's Kira. Oh wow, that's kind of an advantage for team Lucha Memes, captained by Jack Evans. So maybe Jack was the one that selected her. Garobo Punk, Cyberpunk, Rebelde Punk, Astro Lux, Black Metal, not to be confused with Jake, Black Metal from Southern California. I don't even think this is the one from. This is a different one. Baby Star Jr. and Demus Black, not to be confused with Demus 316. So that looks like a good show, good match. Yeah, that looks like that's one of the bigger shows happening in Christmas. I think it has a bunch of a hell of other matches that look really good. Hopefully Alberto doesn't show up for that show, and it's Christmas. Alberto, give us a little break from your craziness. The match before that, we'll talk about that Lucha Meme show at a different date. And really, I would love to talk more about Lucha Memes, but you really don't get to watch them. So it's like, unless you're watching clips or a couple of one of the like Estrellas del Ring or Black Cherry can record a match, that's really all you're going to get. So you're really not going to get the full match unless they release it, and they really haven't mentioned anything about that ever since that one time Danny Ledesma mentioned that they were talking to Mas Lucha about something, and that never really, there hasn't been any news on that since then. The promotion, the indie group that's actually made some news is DTU is going to be airing their 9th anniversary show that they're calling Nueve. They're going to try to air it on iPPV. It's going to be from Arena Afición in Pachuca on this Thursday, December 15th. It looks like a pretty good show. They have a total of 10 matches on that show, but 3 of them will be dark matches. They won't be airing on the iPay-per-view. Maybe they'll air some of it, because I'm guessing they might actually be testing out the live feed to see if it's working. You never know. I would recommend, maybe like if you're going to order it, if you're around, maybe you start watching it before that. The iPay-per-view, they just posted the price. It's going to be for US, it's going to be $5.99, $5.99. So they're already more expensive than CMLL. I think CMLL was $3, so it's But I mean, it looks like, I mean, I'm glad they actually came up with a price that makes a little more sense than $3.99 for the one of the biggest shows in Lucha. In the case of CML, so weird that DTU is doing this before anybody else. This isn't the first time DTU's actually been on on a pay-per-view platform. Several years ago, back in 2011, when Kevin Kleinrock and Ruben Zamora of Mass Republic did the Viva La Lucha shows, they actually got some of the matches from DTU to air on their Viva La Lucha pay-per-view series. And I mean, that's really, I think that was really where many of us first saw an extended match featuring guys like Phoenix. I think Pentagon Jr. was in as Dark Dragon on there. I know Ronnie Mendoza was on there as Tribal at that time, and Flamita might have been on one of those shows also. There were a bunch of guys. It's funny when I was looking back to see the lineup for that show, because it was basically what Viva La Lucha was. They basically got 4 or 5 matches from different parts of 4 or 5 different lucha groups. I think that episode they had 3 DTU matches and 1 match from Pro Wrestling Revolution out of Northern California. And I can't remember. I think there was something with, I think it might have been a Perros del Mal show match or something. I know they had issues with, they had trouble getting stuff from Perros del Mal because they were booking Hijo del Santo at that time, and they couldn't use anything featuring Hijo del Santo. And that was really the stuff that that's really what you wanted from Perros del Mal at that time. If you were going to do an iPay-per-view. So they used DTU, and it's funny because the announcers for that show, one of the first matches from DTU, they could not name, other than I think one guy, they couldn't name anybody. And in the main event, I think they could name about half of the guys. They knew who Phoenix was because Phoenix was really already at that point pretty much he was already in AAA at that point, just starting out with AAA. So he was pretty much a little more known to everybody at that point. Yeah, so this show is celebrating their 9th anniversary. They're doing a nice mix of the craziness that's known as DTU, which is those really crazy multi-person matches, some hardcore matches, some high-flying matches, and of course the main event looks like it's going to be one of the better main events. I'm hoping it. I think everybody's hoping that it's going to be one of the better main events of 2016. I'm holding off on doing anything match year-end award worthy, just because I really want to. I'm hoping we all can see this show if it works. The Mas Lucha crew mentioned they would be producing the show. The opening match, which won't be on. I'll mention the non iPay-per-view matches, just because there's some stuff that's really interesting. The first match features some of the cheeky nerds. This is like the match that features some of the younger guys younger kids, really. Irving, Mini Flash, and Vengadorcito Radioactivo will be facing Arcángel Negro, Luigi, Macicito, and a Luchador Sorpresa. I think a couple of those kids are Ovet's sons, and Erwin and Irving are those cheeky nerds. For those of you who are getting into the whole figuring out who DTU is and all this stuff, all the different factions and groups there are. Yeah, they have kids wrestling. I think a lot of the lucha promotions have that. There's kids. I think for the most part, I think it's more common for you to see younger kids, like when they're in their teen years, like 14, 15 years old, on shows. But I think these kids might actually be younger than that. The second match which is a non-iPay-per-view match, is Pardex Flayerboy versus Toto. It's Pardex versus Flayerboy versus Toto versus Dragonfly versus Fandango, not to be confused with the WWE guy, and Fly Danger. It's and also Danubio El Químico Torres and El Hijo del Mosco, which is X-Fly's son. Danubio El Químico Torres is a kid that's actually doing a chemist character, kind of like the Bill Nye character. I think there's something to it. I think it's a cartoon character. I'm not really sure, but it's like a multi-person match. One of the staples of DTU shows. The third match is Castigado and Vengador versus La Magnífica and Suzu Divine versus Dr. Pollux Jr. and El Exotico versus Camouflage and Tiburon. These are a lot of the newer guys in DTU also. I think that's also probably why they don't want to like guarantee they're going to be on. Why they made it non-eye pay-per-view dark matches, because you don't really want to expose these guys if they end up not being particularly great. Let them get a little more experience before they leave an impression on us grumpy old internet lucha fans. You know what I mean? The first match for the eye pay-per-view is going to be a DTU first generation versus DTU current generation match. The DTU first generation team is Aeroboy, Ángel o Demonio from Los Zamporos, Drastic Boy, Pesadilla, and a luchador sorpresa. I'm guessing it's going to be somebody from the past of DTU's first gen, going against the current generation of DTU's luchadors: Corsario Negro Jr., Loquillo, Moria, Niño de Cobre, and Tony Iron. The fifth match, second match on the pay-per-view, will be Blackfire versus Hormiga for the DTU Alto Impacto title. Hormiga was actually on that one of the matches that was on the Viva La Lucha shows that I don't think anybody knew who he was at that time. But that should be an interesting match. Alto Impacto is basically a high-flying championship, so that should be good. Sixth match, Los Revolucionarios, Dragon Rojo Jr. and Pólvora are defending the DTU and EXO titles. That's their tag team titles. That's right. Dragon Rojo Jr. and Pólvora from CMLL will be on this pay-per-view. They will be defending the titles against Los Malcriados, El Junior, and El Gio. That's actually been a feud that's been going on for a while in DTU. Dragon Rojo Jr. and Pólvora, if you've been watching them on CML, you notice they've been bringing their work boots to the shows a lot lately. And I would expect them to bring them to this show as well, especially if they're told that this is going to be on pay-per-view and people in the U.S. are going to watch it. Because as you know, Dragon Rojo Jr., he really wants to come to the U.S. and wrestle for Ring of Honor and everywhere else in the U.S. The fourth match on the pay-per-view is a tag team match with Los Nerds, Jimmy and Kevin, going against Los Diabólicos, Mr. Condor and El Gallego. It is a hair match where only the winner gets to keep his hair. Basically, 3 men are going to get shaved in this match. So basically, let's say Kevin and Jimmy beat Mr. Condor and El Gallego. Then Kevin and Jimmy will have to face each other, and Mr. Condor and El Gallego would get their heads shaved, and then Jimmy and Kevin would then have to determine who would be the ultimate winner. Or Mr. Condor and Gallego would determine who the winner and who would remain with their hair, and the third guy would end up getting his head shaved. I'm rooting for Kevin because he's my Facebook friend, and he's been posting all these videos about being very stressed out and unable to study for his exams because he is worried about losing this match and he is losing his mind. So Kevin, all of us nerds in the US and in Canada are rooting for you. So that's the guy we're going for. The eighth match, which would be the fifth match on the pay-per-view, it's going to be Charlie Rockstar defending the DTU Consagrado title against Halloween and Ovet of Los Poros. Expect this match to be basically a wild, hardcore match. It might not be as hardcore. I'm guessing it's going to be because, there's really not that much. That's what these guys are known for. And really, a lot of these matches are going to end up being hardcore matches. So we're probably going to see a lot of blood flowing on this pay-per-view. That's probably the match that. Well, I think it's going to be interesting if you're into like death matches and stuff like that. You're going to like it. After that, the sixth match on the pay-per-view is going to be Ciclope and Crazy King versus Paranoico and Toxico in a Rancho de Texas match, which is basically a match where they replace the ropes with barbed wire. I have a feeling this match is going to be the last match on the card because I can't imagine them replacing the ropes and then putting barbed wire and then wasting our time for like 45 minutes to an hour setting that stuff up. I don't know how fast. I've been to indie shows where they've set up steel cages and they take the last show I went to that they had a cage match. They lasted like 45 minutes setting up the cage. I'm guessing they're going to take like a half hour to 45 minutes to an hour just setting up, replacing ropes, removing the ropes, putting up the rope, barbed wire, then removing the barbed wire, putting back ropes. So I'm guessing that's going to be the last match on the show. I mean, it'd be insane not to have it be the last match. But the main event of that show, the 7th match on the card, is Negro Casas versus Flamita versus Ronnie Mendoza in a 3-way match. This match was originally going to be Negro Casas versus Flamita, but on the December 4th show in, I think it was Arena Pepe Cisneros, they had a DTU versus CML trios match where Negro Casas teamed up with Angel de Oro and Titan versus Flamita, Ronnie Mendoza, and Drastic Boy. And basically, before the match, Ronnie Mendoza had offered Flamita a spot as part of his Gold Generation, which is his faction or trio with Drastic Boy, and I forget who the other person is in this trio, in this faction. There might be more than one, but that's and they even gave him a T-shirt. Ronnie Mendoza made him an appearance on Mas Lucha's new podcast called Enmascarados, and he was saying how he was looking forward to having Flamita be a part of the team. But during the match, if you watch it if you go to the Arena Pepe Cisneros Facebook page, you could find the video of that match. Really fast-paced match. I wish DTU would have been posted the whole match on their wherever they're going to put their iPPV, because I think more people would have seen that and probably would have been more interested in ordering it. I mean, I think when you order an iPPV or you order a pay-per-view, it's much like when you're buying a record, or when, back when you used to buy a record or an album or a CD or cassette, you basically were happy if you got 3 out of the 10 songs that you really like. That would make a great, a good purchase. I think that's what we're conditioned to with iPay-per-views for wrestling. As far as wrestling, I mean, I'm an easy. I mean, if there's 2 or 3 matches, I'm perfectly happy with it. If the entire show is great, awesome. So basically, in that trios match, Ronnie Mendoza was beating down Negro Casas when Zacharias El Perico made a run-in and attacked Ronnie Mendoza, and Ronnie Mendoza decided to start stomping on poor little Zacharias El Perico, and Flamita was very upset with him, so he ended up pulling apart Ronnie, separating Ronnie from attacking Zacharias, and Ronnie wasn't happy, so they started shoving each other. I think Flamita hit Ronnie, and Negro Casas rolled him up for the pin. And afterwards, they had promos afterwards where they basically issued the challenge of, hey, let's have a 3-way match, and they agreed to it. So that's what the match is going to be. Ronnie Mendoza said he thought it was going to be the match of the night. I'm going to agree with him, given Ronnie Mendoza's been very good. I mean, this is a guy who was at for those of you who haven't seen him, he's a good independent wrestler. He was in the WWE's Cruiserweight Classic. I know a lot of people who didn't know who he was before that, who were very impressed with him. There were people who didn't know who he was from. Ronnie was trying to get booked on US shows, and one of the promoters I know told me that he got a message from Ronnie Mendoza on his Facebook page and asked him if he could book him on one of his upcoming shows. And I asked the promoter, I go, so did you know who he was? And he's like, no, I had no idea. He just told me he was on the Cruiserweight Classic. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? And I told him before before he wrestled, I go, you're going to be impressed because he's really good. And he's like, I heard he's good. And right afterwards, Ronnie impressed. He wrestled, I think, the Los Angeles version of Misterioso, and impressed everybody. Really good guy too, Ronnie Mendoza. Had a chance to interview him, talk to him for a bit, joked with him about all the stuff that was going on with Elite at that time. Flamita, always great. And Negro Casas, I mean, if you've been watching CML lately and a lot of stuff lately, the guy is, I mean, he's ageless. I mean, I think this past week, it's been a week where everybody's been praising Negro Casas all over. Caristico, from the Super Diva Caristico to the Cesaro to just a bunch of different wrestlers have been talking about how great Negro Casas is and how it's amazing how they could not watch lucha for a few months or years, and Negro Casas, the Negro Casas of today still looks like he hasn't aged one bit. I mean, if he dyed his hair black, dyed in his gray hair, he'd probably, or cut it short, removed all the gray, he'd probably, nobody would even notice the difference that he's aged that much. And the guy still does a lot of stuff that he's constantly adding something new to his move set. He's not one of those guys who's satisfied with just being a legend and stuff like that. He's a credit, and I mean, as Negro Casas has said numerous times in interviews, he really enjoys wrestling the new generation of luchadors. Loves competing with those guys. He had a great match with Angel de Oro, in CMLL a couple of weeks ago, where he basically the final 3 minutes of that match, they just had this great sequence where Angel de Oro tried to pin him, and Casas kept breaking out of the holds, and Casas finally puts him in the Scorpion Deathlock, and as he's putting him in the Scorpion Deathlock, he fixes his hair, and I thought that was just great. A lot of respect for Negro Casas. Ronnie Mendoza said that's something he wanted to do also, because he wanted to see why. Another guy who was talking about how much he's impressed with how Casas is so amazing still at this age. So I think that match is going to be fantastic. Like I said, iPPV is going to be, $5.99. I mean, I'm definitely going to order it. Hopefully they'll have a VOD, video on demand option. I think I'll probably ask them before they. Yeah, I think I probably will ask them just to find out, because I actually noticed that a lot of times it's easier for me to watch it as a VOD just because it's kind of time consuming, especially with all the stuff that I have to watch between Lucha Underground and the Friday show, and now everybody has podcasts to listen to with Enmascarados and Conan's podcast, CML Informa. So yeah, looks like definitely, if you guys have the time, if you have $6 to like spend on something on Thursday, check it out. Looks like it's gonna be a fun show. Hopefully it works out. I think it will. It's amazing that DTU is doing this, and it kind of surprises me that Lucha Memes hasn't done this. And Danny Ledesma actually started out he was with DTU at one point, and it's just it's mind-boggling that he's got the same way of thinking that the old generation of lucha promoters have. And for a guy who's very innovative, hopefully he changes his mind and he starts finding out that iPay-per-view is a good option for these promotions. I mean, there's people outside of Mexico who actually want to watch their stuff. I mean, it's not. I mean, especially at the prices that they're putting it, it's not going to kill us to pay $5.99 or $10. It's worth it for us. We actually do want to watch it. We want to support the promotions. I mean, they think that nobody wants. I don't know what it is about them, but hopefully this iPay-per-view does well enough where more promoters in Mexico, hopefully they start reaching out to Mas Lucha, and Mas Lucha being that they're one of the few groups of people that actually has the ability to film these shows and not just film it and post it on YouTube as fan cams, but actually in high quality and know how to produce shows. And not only that, they have great announcers. I mean, DTU is this iPay-per-view is gonna have some of the better announcing for an iPay-per-view. I mean, we all constantly complain about announcing. They're actually gonna have really strong announcing. So yeah, hopefully this show works out, and this is just the start of something that becomes very popular. And 2017 we'll get more of this. DTU seems like they're gonna start a subscription service. I'm guessing it's just going to be their iPay-per-views at the moment, but hopefully they start maybe posting some matches and stuff like that as part of the deal. Because I really would like to see some of the one of the fun things when you go to lucha shows sometimes is actually the little kids messing around and trying out lucha moves and stuff like that. Some of them you really cringe when they get in the ring. You question the parenting at these shows, but then every once in a while you see like a young kid. I mean, every city has that one young kid that can actually work. I remember Henyo's youngest kid would actually do stuff when he was a kid on shows. And Superboy's son, like I remember him doing stuff and he was well advanced than some of the kids. I mean, he was doing the Zocre bounce off the ropes when he was a little kid, which was was amazing. So yeah, these kids are actually like the cheeky nerds, just stuff that I really want to watch. And the fact that they have a relationship with CML, I mean, I think that's another thing. That's one of the great. I think that's one of the other great things. And hopefully this CML sees like this is an avenue for them to help their talent get more exposure, because they can't. I mean, there's only so much that they're going to give guys like Dragon Rojo Jr. and Polvora. I mean, the promotion's going to only do so much, and whereas maybe they'll feel more. They'll get more recognition working the indies, and more fans outside of the U.S. will see them, and maybe that's another avenue rather than them having to work the same boring trios matches on Tuesdays or Mondays, or or even Fridays sometimes, like we'll talk about in a bit. So yeah, that's that. Check that out. Should be fun. This past Friday CML show, oh my God, this arguably one of the worst Friday CML shows. I mean, we had this amazing run of great CMLL Friday shows. It ended this past Friday. There's a formula that CML has that they could run with on Fridays. Simple one. All you have to do is maybe put one singles match a week, on Fridays. You have your guys, you have your main 5 guys who could have great singles matches with anyone. You have Volador Jr., Ultimo Guerrero, Negro Casas, Rush when he's around, and Dragon Lee. Those 5 guys. But then you know what? You have guys like Maximo, Hechicero, Valiente can have some good singles matches. Pólvora, Titan. The list goes on and on. I mean, this is a formula you could go with. Every once in a while, you have a trios match that sets up that singles match. Caristico's there also. But when they don't go with that formula, and they have they have a strong undercard. Like some young guys like Soberano, Cuatrero, Sanson, Puma, Tiger, all these great undercard guys you could use underneath to work the opener, the second match, the fourth match, because the third match is for the women. Even the minis, I mean, there's some minis. I mean, do we really have to have? I mean, can we just have like Stuquita and Eléctrico, Astral when he's around, Demos 316 and Pierrotito? Maybe those 5 guys, just have them like have singles matches like whenever they're on, instead of having all these other minis or Mercurio also, another one that's really good, rather than have all these other, like, bringing back some of these scrub minis. The women, the same thing. I mean, but that's a little bit more worrisome because the women's division is really like starting to fall apart. It's actually gotten worse. Like I think it at one point it wasn't that bad. When Marcela was young, Amapola was young, when Dark Angel was just starting out and was popular, when Princesa Suhei was around also. All was younger. When you had a deeper roster of females, and it kind of looked like they were going to start having that when but then Dark Angel left, Princesa Blanca left. They stopped bringing in new females that actually could wrestle. Like they don't. I mean, really, how hard is it to get Kira to be on these shows? I mean, how there has to be a way to get her on the shows. And now the concern now is that Zuxis at some point is going to leave. And when she leaves, it is really going to be trouble because, the young talent they brought in, Haruchita, Sanelli, Metallica actually, I haven't seen enough of her where I can say that she's basically the better of all of them. But I mean, these women every other week, I have a hard time figuring out which one's like I think Zuxis, and Amapola are really at a different level, and really the rest of the women, you just constantly go back and forth wondering what they're doing. And so basically they decided to set up they basically have they set up 3 feuds, they have 3 big feuds going on right now in CML for the winter months, for the winter month of December, and I guess possibly even January, where it's the women is one feud with all the women. I mean, really, you don't have one particular woman, it's all the women. The other feud is Maximo versus Máscara Año 2000, which, you know, when Máscara Año 2000 returned, you kind of knew this was going to happen, but you were always hoping that maybe this would get Sanson and Cuatrero a little more exposure and maybe a little bit more of a push. I mean, they really do belong higher in the card. I wouldn't be disappointed if they were basically main event guys at this point. They instead went with Mascareño 2000, and the other feud is Caristico versus Ultimo Guerrero. But the other problem with that, the problem with Ultimo Guerrero Caristico is that you also have Ultimo Guerrero feuding with Valiente on the other shows. I think it's the Puebla and Guadalajara shows. But if you're watching CMLL's Lucha Retro show on Fox Deportes, you're also getting Valiente feuding with Ultimo Guerrero on that show because that's about 2 or 3 months behind. So you're basically getting Valiente feuding with Ultimo Guerrero in 3 different places, with 2 of them being televised or being streamed online. So it's a little too much. I think it's oversaturation of Ultimo Guerrero versus Valiente. The women's feud, basically, they had been talking about there being a bomb that was going to set off on this past Friday. They ended up having this Relevos Increíbles trios match. Very boring match. Really bad match. I mean, there's nothing more to say. I mean, if the I don't know. I think it was more bombed than bomb. Awful. I mean, I don't know what they're setting up. They basically had Zuxis challenging Princesa Suhei, and Princesa Suhei challenging Zuxis. Dallas getting involved. Estrellita getting involved. Then you have the other women, Vaquerita being mentioned. And then the next show, they're going to have another trios match, and this time including Jarochita and La Metálica. So I think they're setting up a cage match or a Torneo Cibernetico or something where the hair or mask are going to be on the line. I think everybody's assuming this is going to be Zuxi's possible farewell. Because I think she might end up going. I think the plan is that she might end up going to WWE at some point, sooner rather than later. The way she's been booked, it kind of comes off that way. Especially like they had that Princesa Suhei Zuxi's possibility going back to September, and then they kind of like went mum on it for several months, and then now this is happening. So that seems like that's going to be something that's going to lead up to some sort of stip match. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Máscara Año 2000 and Maximo appears. That also looks like it's going to be a hair match, going to lead to a hair match. I think we just recovered from the Super Park and Negro Casas hair feud, which was horrible, but at least gave us Negro Casas versus Volador Jr. afterwards. But now Máscara Año 2000. The one thing I will say about Máscara Año 2000 is he's a lot better than Pure Oath, but that's not really saying much. Disappointing that they didn't elevate Sansón and Cuatrero and actually include him. They might be included in the feud in some way, like them interfering. But I don't get the point in having this feud happen. I mean, maybe Mascherano Dos Mil needs money or something, so maybe that's why he's doing. Obviously, that would be the reason to do it. Unless Maximo loses his hair, I have no idea, but it's always something like that comes up. The other one is Caristico versus Ultimo Guerrero, where they're already throwing out mask versus hair match challenges. It's December. I don't see that happening in December. It might happen at Dos Leyendas, but I'm guessing it could happen in the anniversary. It seems like it would be a waste to have Ultimo Guerrero drop his hair to Caristico. Would make more sense if they went with the Rush Ultimo Guerrero hair match, or Volador Jr., just because that's been more of a plan that they've been doing for. They were going that route earlier several weeks ago before Rush headed to Japan, and I think that would make more sense just because there's more doubt as to who of those three would lose their hair in a hair match. That's really what's going on in CMLL right now. There were, like I said, Nero Casas had some great matches. Sansón and Cuatrero looked very impressive. They were unsuccessful in their title match against Guerrero Maya Jr. and the Panther this past Saturday for the Arena Coliseo tag team titles. I'm surprised because I thought they were going to win them. I mean, It looked like it was going to be um, one of those wins where it was their way of elevating Sanson and Cuatrero. It was funny watching Informer because Guerrero Maya Jr. and the Panther were complaining about how the CML doesn't recognize those titles when they announce the Universal Tournament, and I'm guessing they won't either again next year. They barely fucking remembered Rey Cometa had beaten Barbaro Carbonario for a belt, and so it wouldn't shock me that they would forget about the Arena Coliseo tag team titles again. The other, let me see, the other CML news that I wanted to bring up was remember how we all thought when Sombra left CML to go to WWE, and we were all wondering if Rush and La Máscara would add a third Ingobernable, and everyone was trying to figure out who it would be. By the way, I don't know if I ever wrote it, but my top 3 picks at the time, and at one point were actually my third pick was I really thought they should bring in Sanson and Cuatrero, because remember this was something that was being brought up since I think from I think November when Sombra left all the way through March, and Sanson and Cuatrero had debuted in like late December or early January. So I had actually thought they had actually shown a couple of their matches, and I thought they were good enough where they were actually I thought they would be great. They were my dark horse as members of Los Ingobernables. My second choice, third was those two guys. Second choice was actually them bringing back Máscara Dorada as a Rudo. That didn't happen, and I think everyone's first choice, and I think everybody will agree that everybody brought it up on Twitter and online, was Kamaitachi, just because at that point he was basically the one guy who pretty much represented what Los Ingobernables were, especially in that feud with Dragon Lee, and how he had done all that stuff where he didn't give a crap about a lot of stuff, and the way he would act, present himself, I thought that he would have been a perfect fit. So basically, everyone's wish of Kamaitachi becoming an Ingobernable didn't happen in CML, but it happened in Japan. He debuted as a member of Los Ingobernables de Japon at New Japan's most recent show. He helped Rush and Naito win a match by attacking Kushida. So that's actually something that happened over there. So it's amazing. Like if you look at the faction, the Ingobernables faction in Japan, they look so fucking great. Like you look at it with Rush, Naito, all the other guys that they've added, Kamaitachi, they look fucking cool. And then you look at the faction in Mexico, and it's Rush, La Máscara, and Pierrot, and it's like, it doesn't look, I mean, they look tough, but it's not like as cool as it could have been. I mean, I think I think Rush made a mistake having his dad be part of the group. I don't know. I mean, like I said in the past, you know, I love my father, but I probably wouldn't want him to be in my faction. I mean, because that doesn't come across cool, and not that he isn't cool. It's like it just would have been weird, especially like for a wrestling faction. I wouldn't have done that. So yeah, that's the news out of with Los Ingobernables. Canis Lupus was in a car accident on December 4th. He was scheduled to wrestle on the IWRG show that Sunday, and it was mentioned on the Enmascarados podcast that he and his family was in a car accident. His family was okay. Canis Lupus had suffered the most injuries out of it. They said he's okay, he's alive and stuff, but they didn't know how serious his injuries were. So he's basically he's out. I mean, he was supposedly going to be in the IWRG's Rey del Ring, the Royal Rumble that I mentioned. Would have been funny. I mean, he would have been there to hear more of the stories of Alberto, which was the big news. That Rey del Ring was won by Mascareño 2000 Jr., which is proving that I guess it's been a great week for the Mascareño 2000 people named Mascareño 2000. There is I'm looking at Facebook right now because there's more comments on that stuff. Gringo Loco There was a benefit show for Gringo Loco. My friend Octavio out of Illinois, sent me a video of them, of what, of them honoring him, and just talking about how he was, all the donations from that show were given to Gringo Loco. The wrestlers that worked that show in Berwyn, Illinois, all did work for free. And in fact, the promoter of the show mentioned that they actually gave money to help Gringo Loco out. There's a few other benefit shows that are happening as well. I don't know if they've started a GoFundMe or anything for Gringo Loco. They probably could do that. There's plenty of support. Some recent results. Diana La Cazadora won the hair of Nina Monet, while Bestia 666 won the hair of Rico Rodriguez. Both of these matches happened in Monterrey. Also, I should repeat myself, because if you haven't heard of Lucha Talk, our most recent episode 12, we really raved about the Galactar versus Delta Mask match from Monterrey from November 27th. Great match. Again, I have to mention how great that match was. Jack Evans, who got fired from AAA, I mean, he's been everywhere. He's been on Lucha Memes. He's going to be on Lucha Memes, debuting for Lucha Memes in a match against Ray Cometa. He was on that Cara Lucha show where the rope snapped on Barbara Carbonario. I don't know what's going on with Cara Lucha. They always seem to have these ropes snapping on shows for them. So they might actually need to figure that stuff out. What else? He wrestled I think he was in New York earlier today. So he's been all over the place. He's still in Lucha Underground. He's doing well. And speaking of Lucha Underground, that show from November 30th, that was a good, featuring Pentagon Jr. as Pentagon Black there, versus the Black Lotus Triad. I thought that was a great show, fun show. There was some stuff I don't agree with. I mean, Pentagon Black getting both arms broken, ridiculous, but I mean, it's something, you get over it, I mean, Pentagon Black got his arms broken by Black Lotus. You don't see him fucking complaining about this shit online or anything, But that show, like I was saying on Lucha Talk, if you haven't heard it, I thought Doku, who was Kari Hojo from Stardom, I thought she bumped great for Pentagon Black. It was somewhat awkward at times to watch, because there's still that issue where it's still difficult for me to watch intergender matches. And it's weird because I've watched AAA since 1999, since the 90s. So it's like, and they've been using intergender matches, I think, since 98, 99, with maybe a little after that. I know it's from the Apaches when they were feuding and all that stuff, and the Relevos de Locura matches. But they've been doing it for a long time. You'd think I'd be accustomed to it. It's still kind of awkward when you see it sometimes. Yori, who's Mayu Iwatani from Stardom, really good. She did really well against Pentagon Black. And then Hitokiri Io Shirai, great match against really fun match. Definitely, if you haven't seen that episode, go out of your way to watch that. Like I said, the conclusion of it with Black Lotus and Dragon Azteca Jr. breaking both of Pentagon Dark's arms. I guess we're gonna get an episode where Pentagon Dark's gonna show up with both arms broken and being revived by Vampiro or something. So that show was interesting. The show after, the follow up show, I thought the Battle of the Bulls matches were pretty good. I really wasn't a fan of the Sexy Star having to get another rematch with Johnny Mundo again. PJ Black, I will add him to the list of guys who actually made Sexy Star look a lot better than she really is. That list includes Jack Evans, Mariposa, and now PJ Black. I think they have all been able to do stuff with her, and I think that proves that I think Lucha Underground probably should have extended Sexy Star's title reign just to make it mean a little more, rather than just it be a one-time thing. But the bad news is now we're going to get Sexy Star versus Johnny Mundo in a cage, and Mundo's one of the guys who can't really have... His match with Sexy Star wasn't very good, so I can't imagine it being that great in a cage. I'm not really that thrilled about that match. Overall, I think this season of Lucha Underground hasn't been as good as the previous two, but like I said, I think it's the novelty of Lucha Underground. The first season was so an all-time high that it's hard to match, to compare that. And I think you're going to get that as the years go on, as the seasons go on. Hopefully, as the seasons go on, they're going to have to like make a few changes. And I think also the seasons are going a little longer, so hopefully they can come up with some more stuff. I mean, also we're not getting some of the guys that were regularly on the shows on more often, because they're coming back from injuries or being disappearing. The other thing on that one show, we almost lost Dario Cueto when Matanza Cueto knocked out Dario, like he rammed him into the prison cell. We almost lost Dario Cueto, which would have been a nightmare for all of us, because Dario Cueto, if anything, he's probably one of the shining lights of Lucha Underground. We cannot lose him at any point. The producers, the creators of Lucha Underground, you could kill anyone on this show except Dario Cueto. Anyone else, I'm okay with. It's maybe there's a few others I would probably be worried about if they got murdered. I don't want Vinny or Pentagon Dark or Phoenix to get killed off the show. Although, with Phoenix and some of the guys who are like Jack Evans and those guys who are leaving, who just left AAA, we don't know what's going to happen, because we still don't know what the situation is going to be with pertaining their situation with AAA. And also something I recommend you guys listen. Conan did an interview with Reyes del Beautiful. I think Liger Fever already recapped all three parts, but there's some interesting stuff that Conan talked about with Lucha Underground, and how he really doesn't know what the situation is going to be for some of the guys who just left AAA. I think when season 4 gets announced, we'll know more or less what's going to happen with Ray Phoenix and Jack Evans, Sexy Star, all these people who left. And you think they left in some of them say that they left in good terms, but it obviously it wasn't as good as some people would think they were. So hopefully we will get more on that. I think right now I'm okay with Lucha Underground being good every other week, as long as it doesn't fall apart completely. Because I mean, you're not gonna get every week isn't gonna be great. I mean, it's like CMLL. I mean, every Friday show. I mean, we should be thankful that there were so many. Like I think from September to like this past Friday. I mean, I think maybe 75-80% of the shows were really good. So that's good. I mean, there's people who only watch the Friday shows and don't watch the Monday, Tuesday shows. But if you're watching the Monday, Tuesday shows, that those shows have been horrible. Like 99% of that time that they've been going on. So, I mean, I don't watch the Tuesday shows, but I should mention I've been watching the LA TV version, and I don't think I've been missing much. I basically only pick out watching whenever the time Hechicero wrestles Rey Bucanero, and if they have a big singles match, I'll watch that. But any other stuff, it's like I haven't really missed much. So yeah, so that's all the news for this week. I'm trying to think what else happened. Hopefully Alberto didn't do anything crazy at the time of this recording, because I'll be very upset that I'll end up turning this off and there'll be more Alberto news. I don't see anything else other than comments from everybody complaining about how he's a son of a what, from the people who are backing Rafy of the Ninja Turtles. So yeah, next show we'll probably talk about that. We'll talk about the DTU. We'll recap. Hopefully we'll recap. Next show we'll recap the DTU anniversary show from Thursday, the CMLL Friday show, and Lucha Underground. So yeah, thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.